The restaurant was one of those upscale establishments where reservations were made weeks in advance, and single meals cost more than some people earned in a day. Soft lighting, quiet conversations, the subtle clink of expensive silverware against fine china. Ethan Bennett sat at a corner table, adjusting his tie nervously as he waited for his blind date to arrive. At 37, he was CEO of Bennett Digital Solutions, a tech company worth over $1 billion. He'd been on countless dates, arranged by well-meaning friends and colleagues, all of which had ended the same way, with women more interested in his bank account than in him. But tonight was supposed to be different. His sister had set this up, insisting that Victoria was perfect for him. Sophisticated, successful in her own right, someone who wouldn't be impressed by money because she had plenty of her own. Victoria arrived fashionably late, exactly as Ethan expected. She was stunning: dark hair, designer dress, the kind of polished beauty that turned heads as she crossed the restaurant. She slid into her seat with practiced grace, offering him a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ethan, I'm Victoria. So sorry I'm late. Traffic was impossible." "No problem. I'm glad you could make it." The conversation started pleasantly enough. Victoria was articulate, well-traveled, knowledgeable about wine and art and all the cultural touchstones that wealthy people use to identify each other. But something felt off. Her questions were all about his company, his properties, his investments. Every topic circled back to money in ways that felt calculated rather than natural. The waitress arrived to take their order, a young woman with blonde hair pulled back in a bun, wearing the standard black and white uniform. She looked vaguely familiar to Ethan, though he couldn't place where he'd seen her before. "Good evening. Can I start you off with drinks?" Her voice was professional but warm, a stark contrast to Victoria's carefully modulated tones. Victoria ordered an expensive wine without looking at the waitress. Ethan ordered water, uncomfortable with the casual dismissal. As the waitress turned to leave, she dropped something beside Ethan's plate. A folded napkin. She didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge it, just moved smoothly to the next table. Ethan picked up the napkin casually while Victoria was checking her phone. Inside, written in quick handwriting, was a message: "She's not who you think. Ask about her past 3 dates." Sarah. Ethan's heart rate picked up. He looked toward the waitress, but she was at another table, her back to him. The name clicked suddenly: Sarah Mitchell. They'd gone to college together, both in the business program. He hadn't seen her in years, but he remembered she'd been kind, smart, someone he'd always meant to get to know better before life had taken them in different directions. Why would Sarah warn him about Victoria? "Is something wrong?" Victoria asked, noticing his distraction. "Oh, just. Can I ask you something? My sister mentioned you're newly divorced. How long has it been?" Victoria's smile tightened slightly. "About 6 months. It was amicable. We wanted different things." "And you've been dating since then?" "A little. It's been difficult getting back into the scene. So many men are intimidated by successful women." She leaned forward. "That's why when your sister mentioned you, I was intrigued. Someone who understands what it's like to be at the top." Ethan nodded, but something in her answer felt rehearsed. "Can I ask who else you've dated recently? Any mutual friends?" Victoria's expression flickered. "Why would you ask that?" "Just curious. My sister knows a lot of people. I wondered if we had mutual connections. I've been on a few dates. Nothing serious." Sarah returned with their drinks, and as she set down Ethan's water, she made brief eye contact and gave an almost imperceptible nod toward the restrooms. "Excuse me," Ethan said to Victoria. "I'll be right back." In the hallway near the restrooms, Sarah was waiting, her professional demeanor cracking to show genuine concern. "Sarah Mitchell? From Hudson University Business Program? You remember? Good. Look, I have about 30 seconds before my manager notices I'm gone." Victoria Chambers. "She's been on dates with at least 3 other wealthy men in the past 2 months. I know because they've all eaten here. All blind dates arranged through mutual friends. She comes with different stories each time, but the pattern is the same: recently divorced, interested in successful men, lots of questions about finances." "How do you know all this?" "I waitress here 5 nights a week. I pay attention." Two of those men came back late, said, saying Victoria had tried to borrow money within weeks of dating. One of them said she'd somehow accessed his credit card information. I can't prove anything, but my gut says she's running some kind of con. And you're a good person, Ethan. You tipped me $50 on a $20 meal when we ran into each other junior year. And I just told you I was struggling to pay rent. You said it was for old time's sake, but we barely knew each other. You remembered I existed. That mattered. Ethan felt his world tilt. Why are you waitressing? You graduated top of our class. Pain flashed across Sarah's face. Life happened. My mom got sick senior year. I dropped out to take care of her. By the time she passed, I had medical debt and no degree. Been working my way back ever since. Sarah, I'm so sorry. Don't be. Just be careful with Victoria. Something's wrong there. Trust me. Back at the table, Ethan saw Victoria with new eyes. The calculated questions, the rehearsed answers, the way she dismissed Sarah without even looking at her. Victoria, I'm going to be direct. Have you been on dates with Thomas Winters or James Park recently? Her face went pale, then flushed red. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. I think this is a pattern. And I think this date is over. Victoria stood abruptly. Your sister said you were successful, not paranoid. You're going to believe some waitress over me? Yes, because that waitress was honest enough to warn a stranger when she didn't have to. While you've been lying since you sat down. Victoria grabbed her designer purse and stormed out. The restaurant went quiet for a moment before conversations resumed. Ethan signaled for Sarah. When she approached, he said, "Can you sit for a minute? Your shift must be ending soon, in 10 minutes. But I shouldn't, please. I owe you a thank you. A real one." Sarah sat hesitantly. Up close, Ethan could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the worn edges of her uniform, the life she'd built from circumstances beyond her control. Why didn't you finish your degree? Ethan asked gently. Medical bills. My mom's insurance didn't cover everything. I've been trying to save enough to go back, but every time I get close, something comes up. Car repairs, dentist, life. What if someone covered it? The rest of your degree? Sarah's face hardened. I don't need pity. It's not pity. It's investment. You saved me from what could have been a very expensive mistake tonight. And I remember from college that you were brilliant. Wasted talent is a crime. Consider it a scholarship, or a loan, if that makes you feel better. But let me help you finish what you started. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Why would you do that? Because you remembered a $50 tip from years ago, and used it as reason to help me tonight. Because you work 5 nights a week, and still notice when something's wrong. Because talent and kindness shouldn't be wasted due to circumstances. Let me do something that actually matters with my money. Over the next months, Sarah returned to school while continuing to work part-time. Ethan funded her education, and more than that, became her friend. They studied together sometimes, talked about business theories and life dreams, built something real from an interrupted blind date and a warning note. 2 years later, when Sarah graduated with honors, Ethan offered her a position at his company. She revolutionized their customer service division and became one of his most trusted executives. And somewhere along the way, friendship became love. They married 3 years after that disastrous blind date, in a ceremony where they served guests at the reception themselves. A nod to the night Sarah had been working as a waitress and saved Ethan from a con.at the reception. Sarah gave a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. 3 years ago, I was waitressing at an upscale restaurant where I didn't belong. Watching wealthy people on dates I'd never experienced. I saw something wrong, and I could have stayed quiet. It wasn't my business. But I remembered a man who'd once treated me with kindness when he didn't have to. So I wrote a note that said, "She's not who you think." What I didn't know was that she wasn't the only one. I wasn't who I thought I was, either not just a struggling waitress, but someone capable of more. And Ethan wasn't who I thought he was, not just another wealthy CEO, but someone who saw potential and invested in people. Sometimes the best relationships start with honesty, even when it's risky. Ethan held his wife close, this brave woman who'd risked her job to warn a stranger. who'd reminded him that the best investments aren't in companies, but in people, who'd shown him that sometimes the person serving you dinner is more valuable than the person sitting across the table. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment about a time when someone's warning saved you from a mistake.